Picture it, Los Angeles 2025. Wait, is this the first 2025?
No, it's the second one. You just have it in the script from last week as the first one.
It's the second 2025.
But, I mean, well, we'll get to this. Hold on. Welcome to Out on the Lanai, the only Golden Girls podcast you're ever going to need to listen to. I'm HAlanScott / who? Oh, Sadie Pines.
I'm Kerri Doherty. I don't know what day it is. And today we're doing another Golden Rewind, where we go back and rewatch our favorite episodes of The Golden Girls and offer new insights since we first started breaking down these episodes way back in 2014. I know a lot of people are really excited for us to be going back to these season 1 early episodes. So it's time to install a trapeze above your bed and make love with the lights on, because we just rewatched season 1, episode 14. That was No Lady.
Which we found out from our guest today, which I'll announce in just a minute, that we watched this episode around New Year's it was our first episode of 2015, I believe, back in 2015. Like the first one. Isn't that amazing?
This is a total coincidence that we
did not plan this.
We did not plan this, that we are watching this episode nearly 10 years later. I almost want to go now. I kind of want to go back and listen to it.
I don't. I never want to listen to anything I've ever done before.
I don't either. I'm like,
there's
oh,
so
I bet
much
I
of
sound
me out
so
there.
cringy.
I know. I don't want to. No, nothing. And we had the bad audio and everything. No. Well, okay. Our guest today, y'all. If you're in the Golden Girls universe, you know this amazing, amazing drag performer, person, Golden Girls VIP. Yes, it is. Well, it's the B. Arthur. It's Beatrix Eglantine Aurthurson. We call her B. You know her. You know her from Golden Gaze. I mean, I've completely butchered her name, I'm sure, because what I love about this person, and I've known Jason, the human being behind this amazing B. Arthur from Golden Gaze, is I've known Jason for over 20 years, I bet, at this point. Like, I mean, it's
longer than you've known me.
Yeah, I mean, because we knew each other in New York, so I didn't know you in New York. And we were doing comedy in New York and just sort of really starting out in our worlds and doing all of our things. And over those years, Jason started doing Golden Gaze. And we talked a little bit about the origin of, and Jason's done the podcast before, so like y'all are familiar with Jason's work from the Golden Gaze, and they've been on and we know them. But Jason talked a little bit about sort of what that experience was like creating this character and how it has become their own sort of version of a drag persona that was inspired by B. Arthur. Very similar to my own drag experience of doing the Golden Girls podcast for so long, being in the Golden Girls community, wanting to do drag, wanting to do comedy in drag, wanting to sort of navigate that world and still have that anchor of the Golden Girls in my drag, while at the same time doing my own drag. And that's how Sadie Pines came about, which I'm so grateful to everyone in this podcast world for that. And it's the same thing for Beatrix as well, in that journey really came out of the Golden Girls community and the love that we all have for this one show and the ways in which we express that love in our work and in our comedy and in our drag and all the things that we do. And so it was such a fun chat. But it was Beatrix who went back and listened to that episode back in 2015, where they were like, yeah, it was a New Year's episode. So it's so crazy, the coincidence.
Yeah. And what a fun chat. What a fun recap of this episode. And for anybody on Patreon or next week watching on YouTube, highly recommend watching the video version of this one, because one of us is in full drag.
Yep. It's not me.
And it's not me, obviously.
What are we watching on the Patreon this week, Kerri?
So this week over in the GG VIP Club, we're watching, so it's a really fun video, you guys. So NBC, apparently in 1986, it was their 60th anniversary. They were unveiling the new Peacock logo. It was a huge deal. So they put on this giant sort of like, Night of 100 Stars-esque grand celebration. It was like a couple hours long. They had a bunch of stars from their NBC shows, and the Golden Girls were on it. Mostly B. Arthur, because she was actually singing with like Nell Carter and Soleil Moon Frye and Alfonso Ribeiro. So many fun actors, and the rest of the women are just sort of in it at the very end. But yeah, it was really, really fun and just a real fun B moment, like doing that network thing where you've got to
so much to say about B. Arthur and how she presents herself singing. because it's very unique. It is such
I have a fun note about her entrance, but we'll
please.
talk
Okay,
about it
yes.
on the.
We'll get into it.
We'll talk about it over at.
But we have so much to get to
Club.
in this episode.
Yep.
So much fun chatter with beautiful Beatrix. So let's take a break and come back with Beatrix. It's always a delightful.
Leave it in. Leave it in. Leave it in.
Leave it in. Leave it in. Leave it in. Leave it in.
Oh, who is this gorgeous baby?
Oh my God.
Something just made a cock-a-doodle-doodle noise, and I don't know what that... This is Penny the Poodle. We're staying in Palm Springs at our friend's house. There's literally a rooster going off. I don't know what that is.
You're on Rose's family farm.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in St. Olaf. It says Palm Springs, but it's St. Gustav, the city that never naps.
I love it. I love it. It's the perfect way to start this conversation. Oh my God, Beatrix, B, how are you doing? It's so good to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. I've had some days off, so I haven't had to, put this wig was in quite a state about 12 minutes before I put, but what you probably know, Miss Sadie.
Yes.
I almost called you Shady Pines, which is a different person and great.
But it's my email address. It is my email address, so I have that as well.
Okay,
yes.
When you wash these, they get very crusty. It's very Ursula.
Yes.
And then you brush it out, and it's like, it looks
gorgeous.
like I went to the salon. What was the name of the guy that does their hair? They all get the same haircut.
Oh God! Not listeners are gonna kill me because I'm the worst with references. Kerri, do you remember they gave him the perm? You want to Google that real quick?
It's the same guy who plays Patrick Vaughn. Yes,
Patrick.
And I remember Patrick Vaughn, but I don't remember. Is it
Eduardo?
Alfonso? Eduardo.
Oh,
thank God!
Wow, we are Golden Girls podcast, maybe. Well, B, I do want to say one of the things, and I have followed. I've known you for, 20 years now, I guess. Like a long time, since New York days. I mean, it would have been, mid-aughts.
Definitely in the 20 range.
Yes. And what I love about, because I've seen this you do be Arthur and the characterization and your own, and to morph into your own drag persona through B and through doing B and the Golden Gaze. And I've seen you do this, and you have become, quite literally, in my opinion, sorry, Miss Jackie Beat, the Dorothy Spornak, the drag Dorothy Spornak out there. You just have become it in a lot of ways. How does that feel? How do you feel about where you're at in your drag journey?
I was thinking about that because you and I used to run around in the comedy circuit before I necessarily put this wig on, and before you put your wig on, actually. And I was thinking the first B show, I did a Golden Girl show, like a super raunchy Golden Girl show in the Lower East Side with Mimi on First. And, but it was like Dorothy was having a sex change and I had to whip out a dildo. It was just like,
wow,
look, I'm clutching my pearls. Is it the chain of the pearls? I'm clutching both because it was just that's not my cup of tea. Yeah. So when I wrote my first B. Arthur show, which was inspired by her one woman show, I wrote it more with love and kindness. But what I was thinking when I did that show and when I did the first, it was like I put clown white. I don't even have eyebrows now, but I put clown white on my eyebrow and then I drew a line with a black pencil and then I had blush, from here to here. But it wasn't, I wasn't doing drag. I was, trying to tell my story or whatever. You know what I mean? So thank you for saying that. It's been a conscious journey from many comments about the hair, the look, the voice, the everything. Because as you know, whenever you put a thing out into the internet,
people say things.
People will tell you. And even even your friends, even your fans, people will come to the show and they'll be, even recently, someone was like, your tits are too high. I'm like, you're right. I mean, I hate you.
Yeah.
But you're right. They should be at a gentle older lady level. So now I pin my bra to my granny panty, and it brings it down a little. So that's it. It's learning to pin your bra to your granny panty, and even and taking those notes. Like I started putting more white in this wig because I was looking at a picture when she had the big. I love the season 7.
Same. The helmet hair.
Helmet hair.
That's I mean, it's the drag of the hair. Anyway, and I was looking, I was like, she's almost completely white there. I even messaged Isabel. Do you know Isabel O'Maro?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I messaged her. I was like, was Bea wearing a wig or is that her hair? She said it was her hair. I'm like, okay. Great.
Yes, and Isabel was the script supervisor on the show for a long time. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for plugging that. I was like, oh, everyone doesn't know. Yeah. So I asked Isabel and she said, no, that was her hair. Anyway, so thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
It's a constant, evolving thing. And I certainly learned to paint better eyebrows by looking at Miss Jackie Beat.
Yes,
and,
of course.
And the Doherty from Ginger's group, Divine Grace.
Yeah.
Her voice is.
I mean, there are so many good drag. So many good drag. I mean, people doing Dorothy, but also just doing the Golden Girls. There are so many great groups out there doing. But what I love about specifically yours and how it compares to even my drag, and I feel like it's best that I'm not in drag today because I don't want to compete. I can't compete with Miss B right now. So you're the star of the show right now. But what I love about both of our drag journeys in sort of where we've gone, particularly in relation to the Golden Girls, is that we used our love of the Golden Girls and the community in which we built through our love of the Golden Girls to sort of have a drag journey where you can evolve into your own character or your own drag. You can find your own voice within that character while at the same time having the support of that Golden Girls community to say, we love what you're doing. We love your passion. Go. And even with Sadie, I don't have to do Golden Girls things to be Sadie Pines, but yet everyone knows that's my anchor. That's my community.
That's your rusty anchor.
That's my rusty anchor. And same for you, that you have now evolved into more than just doing a Dorothy Spornak drag persona. You're your own drag persona. You are, I mean, say the full name because I won't do it justice the way you do.
Beatrix Eglantine Aurthurson, the completely original character I created just like Mickey Mouse. Blink, blink. Blink,
blink, blink, blink, blink. Yes, I mean, it's just so perfect. So you should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And where are the Golden Gays? So what are the Golden Gays up to these days? What are you doing? What's going on with you?
So we had a 2-week run in San Diego. We do our holiday tour every year, which is Thank Yule for Being a Friend, the musical. It's like a little bit Christmas Carol, the Nutcracker, some other thing I can't remember. Who cares? So we did that. We always start in Jersey because there's a giant like old vaudeville house in South Jersey, 1,000 seats. Great way to start. That's always the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Then we get in the car and then we drove from Jersey to California. On the way, we did shows. So we did 3 Ohios. We did Akron, Columbus, Dayton. Then we went down. We did Springfield, Missouri, which we had never done, which was another big old Broadway, old vaudeville house. We did my hometown of Lubbock, Texas. Which was crazy. I hadn't been there in a very long time. So for those listening, I made a face.
Yes.
There's some PTSD there. Then we went to Phoenix. Then we made our way to San Diego. We had a 2-week run of our holiday musical in San Diego at the Diversionary Theater, which is a wonderful queer theater in University Heights. And then when we were done, a fan friend, quotations, a fan friend had seen my B show here in Palm Springs, which is where I am. And he was like, oh, we're going on a 3-week cruise. We have to put the dog in a kennel. And I said, so what you're saying is you would like us to stay in your house in Palm Springs for 3 weeks. And he was like, what? You would do that? I would do that. But the dog is here somewhere, and he's very nice, and we're hanging out in Palm Springs while they're like traveling the world in a boat.
That's so fantastic. And what's so great about, I think, the tour that, I mean, what stands out to me and what I love about it, that of the Golden Gaze tour and just what you're doing, is some of the cities you're going to, like Springfield, Missouri. I'm from Missouri. I know that is a conservative city and I performed in Springfield, and it is, and people like to rag on some of these cities that can hew more conservative, but you're doing successful shows. There are good people who want to come out and see you do what you do, and the queerness of it all or the drag of it all doesn't get in the way of that enjoyment. And if anything, maybe it brings people who maybe wouldn't have experienced that otherwise out to a show because they love the Golden Girls, and maybe they're getting sort of an offering of something a little bit different that they wouldn't have normally had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely something like what you were saying about the journey that we've learned over the years, and it's only been about 2 years, a year and a half, that we've been the ones selling the tickets. I don't know if you heard Kathy Griffin when she got canceled, and then she came back, and then she was like, "I rented Carnegie Hall.
Yeah,
I hired the people that worked inside." And she became the person who wrote the checks. That has stuck with me so much that I'm like, interesting. So now that for a lot of the things we're producing, we put the tickets on sale. Now that I am doing that, I'm in that driver's seat. You experience that so much. They're like, we sell out every time we go to Derby, Connecticut, because who the hell knows where Derby, Connecticut is? But the people around Derby, Connecticut know where it is. Like, they don't want to go to Hartford. They don't want to go to Stamford because they live over here. The same with Springfield. It's like, it's not Branson, it's Springfield. And even going to Lubbock, Texas, I had no idea that it would sell out, but it sold out. Because why? And a local drag queen came to the show, and she was like, because everyone just passes us by. No one stops here.
Yeah.
No one stops here, which is really interesting. And you're right. Maybe the drag of it, I don't know, the Golden Girls of it all will always bring different kinds of people together, because it doesn't matter how you voted or how you grew up or where you grew up. The show has been on our entire lives. So you either watched it or you didn't. And most of us did. So
yeah. Ugh. Well, let's get to, you chose this episode we're watching today. Why? What was it about this episode? I think I know the answer to this, but what was it about this episode that made you want to watch it with us?
I like the storyline. I like in the Golden Girls when a character repeats and it's a different actor. I love that part.
You love that Dorothy was filthy. Come on.
I love that Dorothy is like sexy and tawdry, and and the juxtaposition of Dorothy and Rose in this one is really interesting. It's what you kind of would expect of a Blanche and Rose juxtaposition, but this time it's Rose, and it's really interesting the language that they gave Rose, like the words that she chose to use, and even the words that Dorothy chose to use. I really like that, and I think now that I'm inching closer to a golden year, I really identify with that. Like, I was thinking about that as well. Like, talking about coming up in New York and trying to date and stuff. Like 33, 34, I think is when I met my husband, that you're just like, the reasons that you choose to see someone change.
It changes.
And the reasons that you definitely wouldn't have seen someone change as well. Like, the haves and have-nots or whatever of it all. So I really like that. I like seeing her go on that journey. And then also like the denouement of the story as well. Like, she stands up for herself, which is really cool too.
Yeah. Well, Kerri, do you want to get us started on what,
I know. I'm still here. I've just been listening, just totally like huge smile on my face this whole time. Yeah. What's fun about this episode? So this is a season 1 episode. This is, technically Dorothy's second boyfriend featured on the show. The first being Dr. Elliot Clayton. Obviously there's Stan, but this is the first story on this show where the conflict is between Dorothy and her boyfriend and not between her and one of the girls, like in the triangle. And I love that for Dorothy's real first like relationship conflict story, they chose to do an episode about her dating a married man because she herself was once the wife at home who didn't know where her husband was and what he was out doing, even though she doesn't really explicitly point to this until the Jerry Orbach Glen episode. But the show, they totally could have done an episode where Dorothy has her first serious relationship, you know, since Stan, and she sort of struggles to trust and whatever. But I actually thought that, you know, that's not the story they did. And they actually gave that story to Rose in season 1, where she dates Arnie, not Miles, who's the first man that she's intimate with, you know, since Charlie died. So I think just season 1, I'm really noticing that they did a lot of character stories about the women and dating at a certain age and dating when you're divorced at a certain age or when you're widowed at a certain age. And they were really, really rich stories. And B, I totally agree with you in that this story for Dorothy, it was so character rich, and seeing her stand up for herself in such a graceful way.
And just be sexy. Yeah. The way she leaned into him. This was B. Arthur porn. This was basically B. Arthur porn. If she was auditioning for an adult scene, this would be the script that she would use for that movie.
Well, and the angles too, the camera angles that they, I swear they don't use those angles very much, but I was like,
yeah.
And they put that fourth wall up sometimes.
I was literally like, I have to draw this line on my nose because the camera was right on the side of her face.
Yes.
I love and appreciate your dedication. I am curious to know what your thoughts are about Glen because everybody knows this episode, but she's met Glen. He's a gym teacher at a school that she's subbing at. She's fallen in love with him. She barely knows him. We don't actually know anything. We never learn anything about Glen except that he's a gym teacher.
Can we say, I need to say this because what we do know about Glen from Dorothy in this opening scene, when after they somehow worked in a joke about slavery and the World Trade Center, how did they work that into the first 5 minutes of the show? I don't know. But after Dorothy comes out, she describes Glen as like the most handsome, the sexiest, the most like he's a gym teacher. So you think he's physically fit. And then when we actually meet Glen, I'm a little like, she needs glasses. B, what was your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, he's no Jake, but
clearly,
no.
Like she says, like he's tall, and I would be a tall person. So there is something about that. Like even when I'm meeting fans and stuff, when the big, burly, gigantic bears come to take photos, I'm like, oh, I'm so petite and demure. There is something for me, Jason, about that, like being around a big old guy that makes me be like, oh my God, I'm so demure.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like he's a big guy, you know what I mean? He's a big
and makes her feel intimate, feel like a woman.
Yeah. He's good. He's good looking. He has a bit of a hunchback, but he's good looking. His hump makes hers look smaller. I looked him up on the internet after. I was like, oh, he's really good looking. And I don't know if you know, but he was like tied up with the mob and accused of murder.
He's like he literally well, he's also like a very accomplished actor. He's like in The Godfather and like all kinds of stuff.
Sure. But sorry, no, he was like caught up in the mob.
Yeah, and
do we know and accused of murder, but never charged with murder?
He allegedly drove the car away whenever whoever was. You can look it on the internet.
He was a getaway driver for a hit.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he has that thing about him too,
which is kind of hot. It's kind of hot.
Totally
I didn't get that vibe from him at all.
Oh, really?
He gave me like
he's the perfect getaway driver because he looks kind of dumb, but he's driven a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And her, Dorothy's from Brooklyn. He's definitely like a Brooklyn type, I think.
Yeah.
Well, he's Irish. We know that. So Yeah, Sophia's like, well, he's Irish. You met him at a bar. I
He
love
didn't
that
look
joke.
Irish. Like even though I know he's set up to be Irish, he's very Italian. He like the actual actor is not Irish at all in a way.
Well,
it
he
doesn't
could be
seem.
Irish and Italian. I'm Irish and Italian.
I'm sure.
Well, then his big breakout is Godfather, and he played the Jew. He's like the Jewish mob boss guy or whatever. Anyways, New York. He's a New Yorker. Yeah. Also, I think there's something attainable about him as well. You know what I mean? Like, he's really good looking, but he's like a 10 for a cheating PE teacher.
Well, that's the interesting thing that you bring up a good point in that Dorothy does have a type. Yeah, because he's very Stan-like in a lot of ways. He makes poor decisions. He's tall. He's not the most attractive, but at some point in a certain light, he could be attractive. Yeah, which Stan, I think, very much certifies for that. Qualifies.
I bet they were both love bombers. And maybe that's why she doesn't know why she's fallen for him so fast, is because maybe he love bombs and he's just throwing all of this attention at her and making her feel so special. And she's just getting caught up in the attention without really knowing who he is. I mean, you can tell with them, like, and we'll play a scene in a moment, but their chemistry is undeniable. The way they look into each other's eyes when they're talking, like there are sparks flying, but and we can talk about this as we get into it, but I really didn't like Glen in this episode, and I don't like him in the other episode, although I guess I like him a little bit more because I have a thing for Jerry Orbach. But
and the cookies.
Oh,
exactly.
Just my mother should have the cookies. He waited way too long to tell Dorothy that he's still married.
Yeah, he did.
At that point, they had already said "I love you" to each other, so it's not like he was like waiting to see if it was just going to be a casual thing or something more.
Do we
like
know
that's a big red flag.
How much time has transferred between when they agreed to go on the date and when
3
they
weeks.
said "I love you"? Is it 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Okay, got it.
And then when she does find out later that he's married, she goes, "You lied to me." And he said, "No, I didn't. I'm telling you now." And it's like, no, bro, like that's not how that works. Like, anyway, he was just like really gaslighting her.
But I get it. The sex was probably great.
I mean, it sounds like it was. So I do want to play a scene from, it's like the post-coitus scene, because these scenes, especially in these early episodes, the scenes are so wonderful. The pacing is great. The actors are really given so much breathing room to just play out the scenes and live in the space. And they're really, really great in it, where she's sort of sitting, combing her, brushing the underside of her hair, and he's straightening his tie. And I don't know how big the mirror is because they're both looking at it, but they're just at such different heights. Yes, B, that's exactly what she's doing. Yep.
Bottom.
Just the bottom. I
don't have that. I want
so
that.
Yeah, I would love to play that moment.
I had to cut the scene down a little bit from the clip you wanted because it was just a little long, but this is basically right after
they're like shacking up at the Chateau Marmont. Yeah.
And she's responding to all of the love and how she feels in this moment. Here's the clip.
And everything that I used to worry about and, I didn't worry about with you.
Like,
how do I look? How do I sound? Is my breath bad? What's jiggling?
What's great about this scene or this moment is it's so goddamn relatable. Like when you fall, we're all, delightfully partnered up in our lives. And I think we all we know that moment when you realize that the person you're with is someone that you don't have to worry about what you say or what you do or how you look or any of those things, that they're not going to leave you because of the faults that you think you have that are external, that doesn't matter. And that is such a huge, huge thing. The writing in this episode is just so perfect.
It's so great. She's like, the fact that she was intimate with this man in broad daylight. Every time I watch this episode, I'm like, oh, she's so brave. She's so brave.
It's
and
true,
that's such
though.
a wonderful thing for her.
It's so true. I mean, B, what do you think? Are you having sex with the lights on? shaking your head no.
Absolutely not.
No.
What speaks to the writing and the acting in that I put my fingers up of a 4 is they set it up in a 4 instead of a 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it's really good. So it was like the this thing, the that thing, the this thing, the jiggling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And not a lot of people can write a 4 and not a lot of people can deliver a 4. But of course,
B. Arthur
can deliver a 4 instead of a 3. But
yeah.
And then, of course, everything's going great. And Dorothy's like, let's go to the Bahamas. Like, let's just,
She's love bombing a little bit there. I'm sorry. I'm gonna back up on the love bombing a little bit. Dorothy Zbornak is suggesting to go to the Bahamas with someone that she's only been dating for 3 weeks. I don't know.
They've already said I love you.
Sure, and she led with that too. And I think that's dangerous. I think she is maybe a little bit at fault. He's definitely at fault for not saying that he's married. That's 1,000%. That's a bigger problem than any problem she has. But that said, Dorothy's being a little bit of an idiot at the same time.
She's just caught up in it. That's what.
But she's a woman of a certain age. Sure, she can be caught up in things, but she also should know better. She should know a little bit better, right? Am I wrong, B?
Did you see Ballroom, the Broadway musical Ballroom, and then the Stardust Ballroom, whatever? And then there was like a TV movie with Edith Bunker, who's tall and has a great singing voice. Who knew? Anyway, that it's very that where you're just like, I don't know. He wants to dance with me. Nobody else is asking me to dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he's saying yes. My husband and I did that too. We had only been dating, I think, a couple of months, and it was like, we should plan a trip to Fire Island. And then we had like booked the thing, and then all of a sudden he was like, And so he like had a really, he had a moment where he was like, what does this mean? What's going on? And we had to have like a real heart to heart. After a date, we went to the Chelsea Pier, and we, just like, I was like, it doesn't have to mean anything other than I like you.
Yeah.
I want to hang out with you today, and I'd like to hang out with you tomorrow.
But I will say you were dating for a couple of months. Dorothy and Glen dated for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's really fast.
Do you think he took her? Because again, I go like, well, what are the red flags from a married man? And so I feel like on that, because their first date was actually dinner. They're just shacking up at a motel where you can like have that privacy and you're not really seen in public. But do you think for their first date, I'm assuming he took her to a restaurant far from wherever the school is? Like, what are the other things that you both think that Glen did early on to try to like keep that distance between his personal life and hooking up with Dorothy?
Yeah, just I'll talk to you at the school, or leave me a message on my answering service, which is like a whole different number. I know this place in Boca. Yeah, we'll drive up. It'll be so beautiful. We'll drive up the coast, and we could go to Boca. Yeah, that's not where my wife is.
They went to an Outback in Boca.
Yeah, they went to the Outback. It had just opened.
Well, when Dorothy starts seeing him again, she does mention that they stayed at a nice hotel over on Biscayne Bay. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's where Barbara Thorndike is also staying, because she's looking out the window and writing about how dark the waves are.
He can't afford Barbara Thorndike level hotels. He's a school teacher. He can't do that.
That's true.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, we'll have more of Glen's cheating ass and Dorothy's broken heart.
So I do love the different attitudes between Rose and Blanche in terms of they're sort of like the angel and the devil, like the, slutty devil and dumb angel on Dorothy's shoulder telling her what she should be doing. And Blanche is like the romantic about it. She's very much just like, you love him, go for it. And, and Betty's like, have more respect for yourself. That's a married man. And, the moment
I feel like you're Rose here, Kerri. I feel
100%.
like of the three of us, you're definitely in the Rose territory. I feel like, and I'll let you can speak for yourself, but I feel like I'm definitely in the Blanche category here in terms of I think I think if no one's really getting hurt and the marriage is already, I don't know. It's tricky territory and people are going to cancel me if I go any further with that statement. So I'm just going to say that maybe consenting adults could just be a little chill about it and like not have to make, I don't know. B, what do you think?
I mean, I'm definitely in the Dorothy zone, and I definitely was in my drinking days. I definitely did all of the things. I was, both kinds of people. And when I became a married lady, who's kind of like the Blanche of it all, where it was like, it's totally fine, but I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Things had changed in the way that we speak about relationships, I think. Like, we have these words that people are using, like polyamorous and, like aromantic, and frankly, things that I'm still learning, that when things like that have come up in Jason's marriage, there's words to be able to like talk about that with your spouse. So that you don't have to go and, I mean, you can, but you don't, it's like you don't necessarily have to cheat these days.
Totally.
Because you
and
could
if
just.
that's a conversation, that Glen had with his wife, if everyone is on board, if all adults are consenting, 100%.
Yeah.
If I were Dorothy, and because when she does eventually like decide that she misses Glen, and there's that whole scene where there's just like little bits of physical comedy with both Blanche and Rose that I love. Like when Rose is on the phone with Mr. Yamamoto and she's going to hang up the phone and she's like kind of subtly bowing. And then there's like, she's having to like step over Blanche's legs, she's like fanning her hands with the nails. Just like little physical comedy bits that I loved. But in that scene, like, if I were Dorothy and I really wanted to give it a shot with Glen, I mean, all we hear is she says like, look, I miss you. Let's talk. I would have given him an ultimatum. I would have been like, look, if you really love me, like you say you do, tell your wife, move out, get your own place, like call me in 6 months. Like that would be those would be my conditions if I were Dorothy. But that's
I don't know.
Dorothy.
I kind of want Dorothy just to have a fuck buddy on the side. You know what I mean?
I had not thought about this, but I met my boyfriend's boyfriend at a party once. I was dating this guy. I lived in Washington Heights, which in New York is way up like north. And I was dating someone in Williamsburg, which is basically another town.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of traveling anyway, and I was drinking a lot. But I was at this party, and he had always been talking about this guy who's like his best friend. I was like, oh, and he's always on the phone with him, and he's always talking to him. And I finally met him, and he was very cold to me. I didn't know why he was being so icy. And he was like, well, who are you? And I said, oh, I've been dating him for this. He was like, oh, well, I'm his boyfriend. I'm like, I have to leave this party.
Wow.
And did I sleep with that guy a few more times? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So, it's just...
I can relate to Dorothy doing it. It's like, if it's...
Hey, look, when I was in college, I dated a guy who was separated from his wife, and he had a child, and they lived in another state. Yeah. And I was like, that's good enough for me. And then the next thing I knew, he'd like moved in with a buddy kind of further away, and I like wasn't hearing from him as much, and I was like, what's going on? Only for a friend of his to call me and be like, yo, this guy doesn't have the balls to tell you he went back to his wife and child. And I was like, oh okay, so maybe I'm a little better.
I mean, I know
about dating a man who was separated.
The amount of straight quote unquote men that I've had relations with in my long life, not so long because I'm only 28. But I know one of them had to have been married. I know it. I wouldn't know it, but I'm sure they didn't tell me. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying. And I also, those were usually because of the drinking of New York days. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you guys realize, I realized like as I was watching the scene where Glen calls and Dorothy's basically like, no, like I don't want to speak to you. That whole scene, Glen must have been so confused if you think about like his end of those phone calls, because first he calls Dorothy and she's like, I didn't want to speak to you. Don't call again. And then a few minutes later, she calls him back and she goes, hi, Glen, it's Dorothy. Yes, let's talk. Yes, Mr. Yamamoto, I'll see you there. And then she just hangs up. He must have been like, what the fuck was that?
I have a feeling Glen, because Glen, I don't think is a good person and probably has cheated on his wife quite a bit, that he's had a lot of really weird phone calls in his days.
Or has like been the perpetrator of them?
Yeah, I think he's used to this at this point.
Yeah.
He's using a calling card at the payphone on Biscayne Bay. It's just like he's used to it.
Just smelling like those fried onions from Outback. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So I do want to play a moment. So Dorothy goes back to seeing Glen, immediately tells Rose, which I love, like she's trying to be like discreet about it. And then the minute Rose is like, hi, she's like, yes, I'm seeing Glen. Like it's clearly weighing on her. Like she needs to talk about it. Yeah. So then Dorothy, Rose, and Blanche are all sitting around at the kitchen table. And I wanted to play this moment because if you listen to this podcast, you know, one of my favorite things to experience on the Golden Girls is Rue McClanahan acting while fiddling with an olive or any other small finger food, because it is just so delightful to watch. Yeah. And it's also a really funny joke. But
Dorothy, I had a third cousin who ran around with a married man for 15 years.
Are they still together?
Well, they would be, but his wife shot him in the boxer shorts. And after that, he just kind of lost interest.
Evil is as evil does.
Oh, will you stop being so judgmental?
Rose, I'm sorry. Rose is being a bit of a Miranda in this episode. If we're doing Sex and the City comparisons, Rose is fully Mirandaing it out in that I get being appalled at like a decision your friend makes, but I lean on the, you know, I'm going to support my friend even if I don't necessarily agree with what they're doing. If it's not necessarily harming them in a physical or health way, well, then I'm going to just try to work my emotions around it. And Rose can't. She's just like, you're evil.
I feel like, well, first I'd like to say, is this the debut of the green outfit? See the green outfit.
Kerri, was it the live watch along or last week's episode? We've done so much that I don't remember that Dorothy wore this green outfit.
I think it might have been the live watch along.
Yes,
but I think this though is this might be the premiere. So this is what, season 1, episode 14. I think this might be the premiere of the green and the purple and the gold.
The Mardi Gras outfit. I mean, it's basically a Mardi Gras outfit. And she wore it a bunch. She wore it even outside of the Golden Girls.
Yes, she took it.
Yeah.
She looked great in it. I mean, look, Judy Evans is making them all of these gorgeous, gorgeous clothes and costumes. They're tailored to fit you perfectly. Like, I mean, you know, where else was B shopping?
In the earlier scene, it has like a purple trim, but it's kind of like sweatsuit, but it has like these scalloped sleeves. Mm-hmm. And then Blanche is wearing one that's basically from the same line with a pink trim. I'm like, Judy Evans, give her
Alaska,
all the awards.
Our mother on this podcast network, Alaska Thunderfuck, and of course GGVIP. She did a Golden Girls show, I don't know, years ago now at this point, 2018 maybe, and she wore an outfit similar to she had a recreation of it. I'll have her text me the actual image, but like.
That's why I'm wearing these contacts, because when Alaska was doing that show, she did like a little YouTube and she did like her bee face. And she was like, when I think of bee, I think of little black dots. Yeah. So that's why I'm wearing my little black dots. We got off track because of the costume. What did you say? Oh, Rose's attitude. It's 1985. Mm-hmm. Rose is speaking to my mother. I know specifically what she's saying. My mother's like, yes, yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Despite, the fact that my mother had 4 husbands. But there's something, whether they're writing specifically to the women that they know are watching this program, that they want that person to be able to sit at the table, so that I feel like she's laying it on thick, but also like We
it's
know
necessary.
That. We know that lady.
We totally know that lady.
We definitely know that lady who's like, you can't do that.
And we're all talking about
she's
that
up on
lady
her,
behind her back.
She's up on her high horse. Meanwhile, like being
she's killing men in the bedroom.
Terrible
She's
person.
literally murdering men with her sex.
If it's not intentional, it's just considered homicide. Homicide can be with or without intent.
That's true.
I learned a lot from our FBI profiler guest, Jim Clemente, that one time. I do love Dorothy and Sophia's dynamic in this episode because I think deep down, Dorothy knows what she's doing isn't right. And I think she is struggling with the morality of it. And I love how like Sophia's like, isn't really showing her a lot of sympathy. Like when she's sitting out on the lanai listening to God knows what on those headphones. Yes, we plugged the name of our podcast. What do we think Sophia was listening to, by the way? I thought at some point, because you know she sings Purple. No, she sings Purple Rain that one time.
I know. She's preparing for that moment.
She's okay. Yeah. So she's just always listening to.
She's not buying more tapes. You know, she's got one tape. Two sides. Side A, side B.
I thought there was going to be something. I was like, oh, that's just
Purple Rain. We can't afford it.
Can't afford it.
Yeah.
But I love that, like, when Dorothy comes out, she's like, oh, you going on another date with Mrs. O'Brien's husband? I was like, oh, but she's not wrong.
I mean, if anyone is going to be like that, it needs to be Sophia. That's why I'm a little sort of taken aback by Rose being almost like a Sophia here, in that it just seems very, like, I would expect Sophia to be like, what are you doing? Stop it. You've been cheated on before. And now you're the other person. Like, no, stop it. So I get Sophia. Rose, I don't.
Yeah, I feel like for Rose, like, because Rose herself would never think about doing anything like that. That I think that she's more coming from a place of like, I would never do something like that. And I can't believe I know someone who would do something like that. Rose is not being sympathetic at all. She's just thinking about, she's not being empathetic. She's like, well, I wouldn't do it, so you shouldn't do it. And it's bad. But Sophia's like, I know you. We shared the same body for 9 months. Yeah. Like, you respect yourself more. You're not someone's floozy. And yeah, I hear you pacing in your room at night, so I know it's on your mind and it's bothering you. Like, she actually, instead of just saying like bad Dorothy, the way that Rose is, I feel like Sophia's like even though her words are maybe sometimes a little bit more cutting, she's like really getting at the heart of it, where she's like, you're a good person. I know you, and I know this is troubling you.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, do you guys want to talk about the breakup with Glen?
Yes, I do. I definitely do.
B, how do you think Dorothy handled it? And how do you think Glen handled it?
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It reminded me, you know, that speaking of Barbara Thorndike, like she has, you know, the Dixie Carter. She has a few Dixie Carter moments where, you know, she really is able to like lay it down. Yeah. But I think that you mentioned it, like something about her grace. She's very graceful. This whole episode, very graceful, even in, you know, gracefully walking into the house and like having this chat with Rose about it. It's like it's not over the top. And I think it also was like, you know, it wasn't over the top. It was like, this is what it is. This is what I need. Yeah. This is what, you know, I can't do this because of this. And you know,
she's very, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you hit exactly the right spot in that, like, of all of the women, you know, Sophia's lived a very specific type of life, and Rose has lived similarly to Sophia, a very specific type of life, and had a very specific type of marriage. And of all of the women, Blanche and Dorothy have had a bit more experience with the nuances of men and sexuality and life and the ups and downs of it, and how people can like come into your life in interesting and different ways, and maybe aren't necessarily the people you would expect them to be. The difference is with Blanche, it's all very surface level. It's all very vanity driven. It's all very sex driven. It's all very like, there's not much of the nuance sneaking in there. But with Dorothy, I think Dorothy, of all of the women, is capable of seeing a cheating man and not seeing them necessarily as a horrible person. Like seeing that there's a lot more that goes into it. And she probably even empathizes, because if she looked back at even her own marriage with Stan, she probably saw the writing on the wall long before he even cheated, but yet she didn't do anything about it. She didn't want to address it. She didn't want to communicate it. And now she sees that, and she sees it with Glen too. And so I really love this episode because we get to know Dorothy so much better, and it dictates so much of what we will come to know about Dorothy in the years to come, based on really a lot of the things she says in this episode.
She's so sympathetic that she's actually giving him advice on how to handle being alone. Because that's the whole thing. Every time he's like admitting something to her, he's just revealing parts of himself that I'm like, oh, he's just uglier and uglier the more he talks. Like, he basically says to her, because first of all, he's like, look, I thought you understood. And he basically says, like, you know, you're my back burner gal. If things don't work out with us, like, at least I'll have my wife. Which it's like, one, you're saying I love you. You have no confidence in this relationship. And she's like, you know, being alone is fine. Like, it's, and she's like, and if we love each other, that should make the risk worth it. She's being, she's just being very generous with her.
Well, and the fact that she
she
hears these things and sees these actions from him, but recognizes that it's not a statement about his character, because she sees that he's just afraid, that he's just afraid of being alone, and has never had to approach or navigate that in any way, shape, or form. And it all comes from fear. And the fact that she's emotionally mature enough to see that, that's huge. Like, that's huge. That's everything, really.
Yeah, it's really cool. I actually was thinking, I'm like, they were trying to get her an Emmy. Are they trying to get her an Emmy? Trying to get her that Emmy.
Seriously, yeah.
It didn't work. Betty White took it from her that year.
Can you imagine? This was probably, and did Betty White have any big episodes? I mean, I know she had Rose the Prude, which was a big story for her.
And a little romance, too.
She had a little romance, obviously, but that was like, again,
that's a big episode.
Fan favorite. It's a big episode, but it's, but you're doing the same thing. It's like, well, that one was like real silly.
What's interesting, but that's the thing, is that like, they were going for Best Actress in a comedy series, and I think a lot of times they probably were even hesitant to submit episodes. And you notice it as the show goes on, that these episodes where they allow the women to be kind of more serious and dramatic, they kind of stopped, because I feel like they saw the tide of television moving away from a very special episode and moving into be funny. Be funny.
Well, they also just run out of stories. By the time you get to season 6 and 7, you're like, okay, how many more? We've told all of the stories. I will also say, I think that the funniest person in A Little Romance is Rue McClanahan. I feel like, she's good. But so Dorothy breaks up with Glen. She leaves. He dramatically puts his hand on the door like he's on a soap opera. Like, he's like, oh, like feeling her leaving. I was like, oh, get over it. But the women are proud of her, and so was I.
Meanwhile,
also, those little tiny thin doors on sets, they don't really close. So he was really being like, I don't want that to swing back open.
Yeah, just
I don't want to have to shoot this again.
Maybe he was holding it shut.
Just gonna lean on it.
Swung open the last time. He was like, I'll just dramatically keep this fucking door.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. I got it. I'm the guest star of the week. I got it.
How many? I was in The Godfather. Trust me, I got it, guys. I was the hitman driver of a murder. I got it. Don't worry. What I do love about this episode is there's the B plot, which isn't like, it doesn't impact much of the story with Dorothy and Glen at all. But what it does show is it shows how Blanche will do just about anything to get what she wants. And you know what? I love a girl with a hustle. It makes me so proud.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done what she did. And she says she couldn't have done what she did either, but she went ahead and did it anyway. Here's my question for both of you about this story. So ultimately Blanche's car is stolen, but Rose was the one driving it. So if Blanche reports that it was stolen to the police, wouldn't she get in trouble because she's essentially having to like lie on a police report and say that she drove the car to wherever it was stolen from, right? Because Rose shouldn't be driving it because she's not on the insurance. I don't know how to tell me how vehicle laws work.
So she likely, most insurance plans, yes, you have to like identify that you have someone else can drive it and be covered under your plan. which you have. I mean, I have that with, so that if someone else needs to drive my car, they can.
Anyone?
And yeah, most plans are like that, where you can
Really?
Yes, that the car is just insured. You're paying for the insurance of the car, and whatever happens to that car, the insurance takes care of it. So with her, with the police report,
you're both nodding.
No,
B,
but
you're nodding too. Is this something that every grown up just knows?
The police report is separate from the insurance, so the police report has really no bearance on the insurance claim, because
she'd have to submit the police report to get to the insurance company.
Well, yes, of course, but the police report is just about that the car was stolen. The owner of the car is reporting the car stolen. How the car got to that place, if she allowed someone else to drive it, that really is irrelevant to the police report. It is just that the car has been stolen, and then she submits that claim to the insurance company saying my car has been stolen, and gets the blue book value, as Sophia pointed out. So really, who drove it doesn't really matter.
She lives in her house. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder about these things, because I'm like, if I were ever in this situation, what would happen?
But if this were Law and Order, she definitely would be a suspect for, like stealing the car and then driving
They'd find drugs in the car
Well, they would
somehow.
check the surveillance footage from a nearby Starbucks, and they would see Rose driving it, and they're like, well, we caught the perpetrator.
Now, the insurance company could maybe give her hell for.
Yeah, that's true. They could deny it because she
wasn't driving it, but that depends on the insurance company and what her plan is about, and like whatever. But if she had a plan that allowed someone else that insures other people driving the car, well, then she'd be fine in that.
Okay. Well, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. I mean, but you probably have that too. I mean, do you and Stan, do you have two cars or one?
Well, we have one, but I remember when I used to have my own car, I remember having to like add my roommate's name to it so she could drive it. But that was a specific person. It wasn't just a blanket, anybody who drives the car is insured.
Yeah.
And Blanche probably didn't add Rose to it.
No. Yeah, I don't think it's a huge thing.
How many people have dropped off at this point? Is anybody still listening? I'm so sorry, B. This is just what happens. Sometimes we have questions about
He's going to email like, hey, I work at Allstate.
Jake from Allstate, if you're listening.
God. Jake. Hi, Jake.
Jake. Stan went out for that part. I was like, oh, we'd be so rich if you got it.
That's true.
Jake from Allstate makes money.
We need to take a break and come back with golden takeaways, and you have to stick around for a golden takeaway because you're golden.
And I'd like to take away.
And we are back with our golden takeaways, which is a nugget of truth or inspiration that you can apply to your life or the lives of our listeners. Kerri, you can listen to ours first so you can think about yours. Kerri, what's your golden takeaway from this episode?
Well, early on, and one of the very first jokes of this episode was a joke about Blanche installing a trapeze above her bed. And for some reason, I pictured her with like the Nicaraguan highlight team doing this. But I was like, what would that actually look like? And do people make them? Do people sell them? Because I was just really curious, because like that could be fun. Not for me, but for other people, because I'm not flexible. So I actually Googled trapeze above bed to see what it might look like if people made them. The only thing that came up are those like bars that help you sit up in like a hospital bed or something. Oh. So I was like, I don't know, maybe you could do something with that. So I don't know if anybody has them out there. Or you're in a hospital.
Wow.
You might have to add the word sling, but you just be careful what you're going to see.
I know. I have to make sure my 3-year-old is in bed before she always
put on parental filters for that search.
I know. Safe search on. No, because if anytime my child sees my my computer open, she goes, "Can we play the grocery game?" Which is just ordering groceries online. So I have to be very careful when it's open.
A kid could never take my phone ever. I mean, that phone is on face lock.
Oh, she takes it. She finds ways.
I mean, God bless.
What is your golden takeaway?
My golden takeaway from this episode is, relationships are complicated sometimes. People are nuanced and have various needs. I most recently saw the new Nicole Kidman film, Baby Girl. And I learned that people, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful film. It's a little filthy and made me slightly uncomfortable, but in a way that I feel like I've evolved into being a new person. And I didn't know I needed to see Nicole Kidman in that way or from that angle. Anyway, I learned that adults are complicated and relationships are complicated. And I love that as queer people, I feel like we have really been leading the way in changing how people look at relationships and sexual identities, and how they can be, you can still be in a monogamous relationship, but also have other situations maybe, and it's all about talking and consent and communication. And I think this is a great example of more straight people exploring different ways that they can have relationships in all of the various ways. And B. Arthur maybe was just leading the way back in the day. I don't know. Maybe a little bit, probably not, but
That sounded like slam poetry piece. That was beautiful.
Did it? Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. You should see Baby Girl, though. Ooh.
I'm going.
Is it anything like Baby Driver?
No, nothing.
Or Boss Baby?
Definitely not. Definitely not. B, speaking of boss babies, B, what's your golden takeaway from this episode?
I think it was that realization I had when Kerri was talking. I was like, wait a minute. I did this. I am this. Oh God. It's that. Yeah. It's that, to be cheated on and then become the cheater. And it's really interesting because I think so many people have experienced this, even the thought of this in their own relationships, where it's just like, where is he? Why isn't he answering my text? Where is he? And it's like, oh, he's at the grocery store or whatever. But yeah, we have that within us, the like jealousy monster, I guess. I mean, I definitely used to really, really have that. Yeah, so it's interesting to think about that, and then to see someone act with such grace, and not necessarily make the best, rightest decisions a few times, and then get there and be like, yeah, this is not me.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's great to be able to like discover those things about ourselves and be like, oh, maybe I'm not jealous. Maybe I'm this, or maybe
I have an anxious attachment style.
Yeah.
Oh God, I do. Oh no.
Oh God, you want to talk about that offline?
Oh God, yes.
B, this was so much. This was so much fun having you on the podcast. We'll have to do it again. Have to see you in real life real soon. Where can people follow you, see you live, see what you're doing, all of the things?
Thank you for asking. Our next program is in Phoenix, Arizona. We're doing a couple Golden Girls drag brunches there. And then that's January 19th. And then we head back east. You can find all the information at my dog kennel. You can find all the information on our website, thegoldengaze.net. We're booking a lot of stuff for February. We'll be touring our musical Hot Flashbacks, which features the songs from the Dirty Rusty Trombone Anchor. So I get to sing What'll I Do? So we tour that. We do Golden Girls drag dinner, drag brunch. And we've got a bunch of stuff happening in February. And we're auditioning Blanches and Roses, maybe a Dorothy, but really Blanches and Roses. If you're out there and you are a singing dragtress and you want to, slide into my DM, slide into them, and maybe you could be in a musical.
And we need to do something together.
Oh, yeah. I was
need...
watching Mildred Pierce today because I was getting ready for the program that you and I are going to do.
Yes. I have there's a thing coming out soon that is Mommy Dearest related that you'll see as a Sadie moment. But yeah, you and I need to do something together live. It's Golden Girls something. Who knows? I think people want it. I mean, let us know in the comments, people, if you're listening, if you want that. I definitely want that. And thank you again for doing this. It's been such a pleasure.
Of course. It's been a pleasure for 20 years. Oh, I went back to listen to the first time that you talked about this episode. It was New Year's.
No way.
Was it?
Yeah, because Kerri's like, oh my happy. She said whatever the year was. She's like, oh, it's 2015. I was like,
How?
yeah.
Wow.
That's so wild.
It was a little weird. Yeah, it was a little weird.
It's a little weird.
Wow, 10 years ago.
Wow, that's crazy, but I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you for telling us that.
Yeah.
What a fun chat with Beatrix. And it was just such a great time. And we just want to thank you all so, so much for listening this week. And we will be back next week with more Golden Girls greatness.
And of course, you know, we are part of Moguls of Media, so go subscribe to Mom Plus and all the things that Mommy has to offer. And you can follow us on social media at Golden Girls Pod on Twitter, Out on the Lanai Official on Instagram, Golden Girls Pod on Facebook, and I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines on everything else.
And I am Squid Eats Squid on Twitter and Squidsy on Instagram. And if you want to do something else super nice, you can leave us a rating and review wherever you get this podcast. And remember, you can watch us on YouTube, find us at Out on the Lanai, and you can join the GG VIP Club at patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast.
And remember,
as always,
Stay golden! I'm Dorothy in love.
Out on the Lanai is not endorsed by Whit Thomas Harris Productions, Touchstone Television, Disney, or any of its subsidiaries. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only.
All names, pictures, audio, and video clips of the Golden Girls are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and/or copyright holders.